This is the Storypunks podcast, the show where we talk about all the punks. So steampunk, dieselpunk, cyberpunk, and all the other punks. It's episode 41. Today we're talking about cyberpunk with Dakota Krout. It's part 1 of 2. And in this first episode, we'll be talking about Dakota Krout's amazing success on Amazon and many other platforms. He is an author who writes about LitRPG, which is very adjacent to cyberpunk. So I'm very excited about that. In part 2, we'll talk a little bit more about his small press, which is probably not so small, but it's called Mountaindale Press. And I'm so excited to share some of his insights. He's been killing it when it comes to putting his own work out there, but then also moving into a phase where he's also promoting other people's work, publishing other people's work. So if you're interested in going down that track, then you'll definitely want to stay tuned for the second part, episode 42. As for my personal update, I have been writing. I've been pulling out some projects that have been latent for one reason or another. And nothing specific to report, but that's where you can go to check it out well, I haven't told you yet, but you can go to cindygrigg.com, CINDYGRIGG.com if you're ever curious about my writing or what I'm working on as an author. And other than that, I just have a few announcements to tell you about, then we'll get right into the interview. So as you know, I keep a running list of all my punk-related recommended reads, but really listens, over at storypunks.world/audible. And it's because I'm very busy. I know many of you are very busy. Probably all of you. I think that is kind of how our world is now. If you've managed to forge out a life that is not super busy, then kudos to you. But I think a lot of us are really trying to find more balance. And for me, audiobooks have really brought that about. If you have followed the newsletter, my last 2 newsletters talked about how I use audiobooks. So I think 2 newsletters ago, I was talking about my underwater iPod and how that allows me to swim and also listen to audiobooks. It's so awesome because you are literally immersed in that world in a very visceral way. So I can absolutely recommend that. It's not cheap to buy one of those, but mine has been going for like 5 or 10 years. So maybe I'll talk more about that on another episode or something. But the other way I listen to audiobooks is by going around my local city park on a recumbent bicycle. And these are just ways that I've been able to be a little more active, get in that time that is hopefully helping my body, but also I am going forward and I'm able to keep up with the very challenging book club schedule that I have laid out for this community as well. So if you're interested in that book club, I'll be talking a little bit more about that as well. And you know who else you need to look for on Audible? Dakota Krout. So my guest today has several audiobooks on Audible, and I've added him to my running list. He has tons of people listening to these audiobooks, and so he comes highly recommended. I mean, you know, in this interview, he's going to mention how sometimes people who can't invest tons of hours in gameplay, they enjoy LitRPG because it's a way to more quickly get that buzz, I guess, of loving a game and really getting into the strategy and all that good stuff. So if reading is faster than gameplay in many cases, audiobooks are even faster for a lot of us. Just depends on how you read, how fast you read. I'm a slow reader, as I've mentioned. So for me, checking out LitRPG would come down to finding a good audiobook. And that's where you can check out Dakota Krout's audiobooks on audible.com. And guess what? I found something else totally new for you to investigate. I'm always on the lookout for ways that people can bring more cyberpunk in this case, but any of the other punks as well, into their lives. And I found this great site where you can actually find cyberpunk decor. I know, super cool. It's really cool because every purchase supports an independent artist, so I really like that. The other thing is they have these designs for t-shirts where they only last for 1 week. And so they're exclusive. They really have this cool vibe that way. And you get a new one every Monday that you can check out. You can also join like a club where you get stuff mailed to you if you're into those kinds of clubs. And then it goes way beyond t-shirts though. It goes into home decor where you can get like fleece blankets or shower curtains, and they're honestly very cool designs. They're not super cheesy. They're all focused on geek topics. And what I like is as you go into any particular topic that you're interested in, like let's say you needed to buy a shower curtain. You just click on shower curtain, and then you can actually shop by collection. And these are some of the collections that this site has. Movies, TV shows is another one. Gaming, so that's very relevant to what we're talking about here today. Literature, comics, anime, and so on. So you can even get into certain fandoms, like there's a Westeros, and then there's a Stranger, there's Whovian. So there's some other stuff I want to show you. I'll wait until the intermission, or basically the beginning of the next episode. Go to storypunks.world/decor. One more very important announcement. In the salon, we're going to be talking about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is by Philip K. Dick. I'm really excited to have gamer and YouTuber Mad Queen joining me. If you have not yet discovered Mad Queen, there is so much for you over on her channel. She's got these amazing insights about the influences on Cyberpunk. And if you look at that, especially when I looked at the audiobook, it actually says Blade Runner for the title. And it says that it was originally published as Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. So if you can't find it under the previous title, then maybe look under Blade Runner for the book. But that's what we're going to be discussing. And Mad Queen has so much insight about the different versions of the Blade Runner movie, because there were several. And she also has these really cool insights on the game, Cyberpunk 2077. You will absolutely love checking out all kinds of content over on her YouTube channel and other resources. But the two that I would point you to are she has this great video about William Gibson's effect on the game Cyberpunk 2077. And that's actually how I found Mad Queen. So definitely check that out. She does such a great job and has just these wonderful backgrounds, and she really captures the whole ambiance of Cyberpunk in her videos, but then also just super witty, super intelligent, super fun to learn about stuff. I'm not much of a gamer, but I love watching her videos, and it has just been super, super fun to discover what she's got going on over there. And I also really loved her Women in Gaming video. So those are two I can recommend, but I think you'll find tons of stuff over there on her channel. And then, yes, she'll be joining me for this discussion and hopefully future discussions. She's pretty busy, so we'll see how that works out. But we're both really into reading Cyberpunk and sharing these classics that helped shape the genre. So other than that, I'm really thrilled to also be offering a giveaway. It's a little $25 Amazon gift card, but who couldn't think of something they could get on Amazon, right? So if you join us on May 20th, 2019, and submit your question to the feed, then we're actually going to have Mad Queen choose the best of all the questions, and you will have a free giveaway. So again, you just go to facebook.com/groups/storypunks. And one very important difference when it comes to this salon session, my guest, Mad Queen, is in Europe. So it will be at a different time just to accommodate different time zones, different schedules. So instead of 8 p.m. Central, it will actually be at noon Central, so 12 p.m. Central. Hopefully that helps some people join us on their lunch break. It may affect people that were able to join at the normal time, but I definitely wanted to get that out there. Please know that it will be at a different time. But yes, join us so that you can be put in for that prize. Submit your question, eat your lunch, and join us. I'm so excited to share Mad Queen's wonderful analysis of this book, which I know will be amazing because I've fallen in love with her YouTube videos, as I mentioned. So yes, please join us at noon Central on May 20th. So without further ado, let's get right into part one of my conversation with Dakota Krout. I know you're going to absolutely love this, learn a lot, and hopefully come away with some new insights about Cyberpunk as well as LitRPG. Here we go. Dakota Krout is the author of the Amazon best-selling Divine Dungeon and Completionist Chronicles series. Here's a bit more detail in his own words. I live in a pretty much Canada, Minnesota city with my wife and daughter. Thanks to you, I'm now a web developer and computer programmer turned full-time author and indie publisher through my company, Mountaindale Press. I started writing the Divine Dungeon series because I enjoy reading and wanted to create a world on my own. I think a lot of people would relate. He continues, to my surprise and great pleasure, I found like-minded people who enjoy the contents of my mind. Publishing my stories has been an incredible blessing thus far, and I hope to keep you entertained for years to come. So welcome onto the show, Dakota. It's so wonderful to have you here. I'm really looking forward to hearing your insights about Cyberpunk and so many other things when it comes to publishing.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm very excited about this. We talked about this a little bit before the show, so I'm just very excited to see how people from outside genres take a look at my books. So I'm very excited. So let's hop right in, however you like.
That's actually totally where I want to start. Just for anyone who has not heard of LitRPG specifically, could you give a quick synopsis of that?
Absolutely. So it means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But the way that the best way to describe it that I found is that LitRPG is fantasy bounded by the rules of a video game. So you have say World of Warcraft or something like that. You have your MMO stats. So you have your strength, your charisma, your luck, agility, perception. All these other things that are quantifiable. And that's the real difference between fantasy and various genres and LitRPG is that instead of saying it works because magic, it says, hey, I have a set limit here. This is exactly how I got this skill. This is exactly why I can cast this spell. There's no, hey, I woke up one day, found a sword, and fought off the King's Legion somehow. Having never touched a sword before,
right,
that character would get slaughtered in our book. So, yes.
The audience may be putting together that we're mostly talking about Cyberpunk today. But Dakota, will you define Cyberpunk?
I mean, to me, it's the kind of the crossover between high technology and kind of low society. So it's more like where you have all the advanced technology, but you also have basically thugs wielding it in a lot of cases.
Yeah, it's super cool because some of the other punks I've heard described that way, not just cyberpunk. I've heard that about steampunk, and you can really see how it makes some of the technology accessible and how that's some of the excitement for some stories. I love that.
For sure. Yeah, it's super cool. And, definitely something that I always seek out, like at conventions and stuff, is anything steampunk or cyberpunk. I'm at that stand before I'm at anything else. So,
yeah, totally. Do you do a lot of graphics in your book? Right, scores, like player scores, like that kind of thing?
I don't. I have those in there. I don't have them as screens. Like I have it as text because a lot of the time that can be frustrating or annoying.
Right.
To have just like big blocks of blue or green or whatever it is interrupt your reading. But so mine are blocks of text, but they're still in there. So it's the character sheet. So character sheet. So that tells you their stats. It tells you like how much health they have, why they have this much health, why they're able to use this skill, why they can't do this. Like your character is not sneaky, and there's nothing you can do to get around that except train in that skill. Like no one is suddenly good at something. You have to show that skill, prove that you have it outside the game and bring it in or build it up in the game. And yes, yes, they have everything from titles to quest lines. All of that stuff is shown to the reader. And that's actually a big draw. And the math is actually a big draw. And if you get it wrong, you will be told.
That's right.
So, yes, probably several dozen times within a few hours of putting your book out.
So mind your maths. So who have been your influences? We'll talk about your series in just a minute, but Who just really excited you, and what medium was it in?
So that is it's an interesting question. So I've always been a voracious reader. I lived in a very very small rural town growing up, so I did not really have access to video games or really computers much until I was almost in high school. And so with I started with books, everything. And I would say the things that have had the most impact on me are books by people like Pierce Anthony, because my whole brand of books is pun-based humor. So it's full real stories that have serious, like, hopefully depth and hopefully a lot that people can take away from them. But if you're not groaning at least a few times, then you're definitely not reading it as intended.
So like the dad joke humor, is that what we're going for?
Yes.
Okay. In an awesome sci-fi setting, very cool. So when you say you didn't have access to games, was there anything before that? Was there anything like, were you into board games or anything like that?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, absolutely. So I grew up on a farm specifically. So like in the country, I was the guy in the country of the country. Like it was. Yeah. So it was when I turned 14, I moved to a different town in town, and then that was kind of a radical shift for me. I've always loved board games, card games, books for sure, because you can always check out a stack of books. And let's see, but I mean, after that, so high school and onward, I definitely got into video games fairly heavily. Like, I would never be able to claim that I was a really amazing gamer, because if I were, I'd still be doing that. But I did a lot of other stuff like World of Warcraft. These games where it's like 300 hours is like the minimum time investment to say that you're even you play it at all. And it's just it's those games that always captivated me, because there's so much that goes into every little thing, and the level, just the level of detail, the level of world building in there, for one quest. And then you look at it and you see like World of Warcraft is like the size of North America in like terms of how much you can walk nowadays. And just to think about that. And so that's actually why there's so much variation in books like mine is, you have massive worlds that you built that, I mean, I could probably have a dozen other authors in my own universe, and our characters would never have to interact, and the storylines could be similar.
Have you ever thought of opening up your world, or I may be jumping ahead?
I have thought about it. I'm planning something to that effect in the future. I have some plans that are kind of slowly building right now, people I'm talking to, but nothing concrete.
Yeah. Okay, but so let's talk about your world. So tell us about your series. I would assume they're pretty different from my read of it.
Yes, very much so. So I have two different series right now. I have just a huge amount of series outlined for the future, so I'm not slowing down by any means. So the first book to come out, and the first series was Dungeonborn, The Divine Dungeon, and the series is The Divine Dungeon. And I like to write from an outside perspective. And so in this book, and the whole series written after it is from the perspective of a dungeon, as it tries to lure in adventurers with promises of gold and items and basically experience. And that book came around from my forays into playing video games. Is you always had that question of why when I step on a spider do I get a boot? The boot is bigger than the spider. What is happening? And so that, that's kind of where I started from. And literally it was that phrase that I just said that was like, I bet you I could write about this. And then I did. And it's turned into an international bestseller. So that's pretty cool.
So people do not have to be the top gamer to write about game worlds.
No. I would highly recommend having experience in gaming. But I mean, the pro players are pro players for a reason. It's because that's what they focus their time and energy on. This for me, this is more like what I would be doing if I were playing a video game. And I'm always very crafty heavy. I always, like, if I'm going out to fight a monster, it's because I need a certain component from that monster. It's not like I had to beat every monster. It's like, hey, I need this guy's fang and this guy's paw or whatever, and then and then you make this super cool thing. And that's kind of where this comes from. But this is more like creating monsters and traps and various fun stuff.
These covers are super cool to look at. This first series you've talked about has a really cool look, that black and white look. I really like that.
Thank you. That's been going strong for a couple of years now. I'm actually going to be redoing all the covers.
I was going to just say that, yeah.
So not because of any dislike of them. It's because my artist who is doing these vanished like 6 months ago. I have no idea what happened to him. He lives halfway around the world, and no matter what I do, I can't seem to reach him or anyone close to him. So I had my fourth book that came out in that series was supposed to come out with his artwork, and he vanished right before it was done. So I have no idea. And I live in America. He lives in the Netherlands. So I have no way of like going and physically checking on him. So
I've heard this before. This isn't not really something to look out for. I mean, what are you going to do? But it could happen. Yeah.
Get your books all, the covers all done in advance. But that's just the thing. Like, if I'm going to, I have one more book planned in that series, and I would love for all of the covers to be along a theme or, at least consistent.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. And the fourth one was not done by the same artist, and it's very apparent. So I need to switch them all, unfortunately.
It's so tricky. So tricky.
But I did find an amazing artist. I'm really looking forward to revealing these covers. So the other series, this one is more directly LitRPG. So this is The Ritualist in the Completionist Chronicles. And this focuses in on a guy who goes into a video game permanently. And his name is Joe, the best fantasy name ever. So he takes a class that is, since he is going to be in the video game permanently, and dying just means respawning, he goes for a class that, instead of throwing fireballs, is slowly building larger and larger enchantments, turning into rituals, turning into, eventually, like 6-7 books down the road, hopefully, like massive world-changing effects, but it starts out, it's very expensive. It's very difficult for his class to progress. Yeah. And so it makes for a really interesting read from someone who's not, grabbing the sword, charging at the King's Legion, or, waking up and suddenly, dropping meteors on cities. So slow growth is kind of the name of the game in these books. World building, making it really interesting, making really good effects, and trying your best to make it all logical. And that's really difficult because there's so many things that you could get away with if you just let it slide. But, he found the sword. It's fine. No, unfortunately, that doesn't work.
So cool.
I do have a picture of the cover if you're interested in seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all about that.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Just saying. So, like I said, my humor is pretty great in my terms, but a lot of people,
Okay, I'm a little scared right now.
So here is the cover.
Oh my gosh, it's awesome.
So that will be coming out soon, probably early January.
So I'm immediately in love with this. It's super cool and weird.
Thank you. The usual answer is what is, all right, I don't know what's going on there, but I want to read the book.
Yeah, totally. So just in case you're listening to audio, I don't even know how to describe that, but
it is a character who is a chiropractor who has T-Rex head hands. So his hands have been transformed into T-Rexes.
He's a chiropractor.
But only their heads, yes. So that's based after his image is based after my brother, and the T-Rex heads are based after a friend of mine reached out about a year ago, and all he sent was just, his hand. Nom, 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 nom. First time I'd talked to him in probably 5 years. And I started laughing, and then that kind of stuck in my head for a good long time. And yeah, so that's where that came from.
It's so cool. Well, okay, so there's so many people listening to this podcast who are working on their own projects. So when it comes to world building, I was really interested in how your character stays in the world. So sometimes we have worlds that our characters just visit. And as you've gone through that, what insights do you have for anyone who is writing? Are there any nuances or things you observed that made the story work better?
For me, a couple of things. One of them is that in this kind of book, the books that are doing really well in the genre are the books where the people stay in the world. And a part of that is a lot of people are like, pick a story, like go, like one thing and go, otherwise, like a lot of people really like to pull like their own personal life into the story and kind of make themselves into the character and then kind of show their own life in, and that's fine, for a lot of people and a lot of writers, that's perfect. For this sort of thing, I mean, the focus is not the real life. The focus here is people like me and my listeners and readers who want to be playing video games, but they don't have that 300 to 400 hour time investment to sink into a video game. They have jobs and then they go home and they're with their families and then sleep and then repeat, and they want that escape. They want that, they want to play the game, and more than anything, people tell me, hey, when are you making a game out of this? Next year. So anyway, so the the big thing is the game. That's the point of reading these books. And for people trying to write in this, I would say definitely come into it and treat it as if your character is really there, but also simultaneously treat it like a game. You would do things in a game that you wouldn't do in real life. I probably would not charge at a polar bear, like I probably avoid that pretty heavily. Yeah, but if I have no fear of dying, I have a sword, or I can shoot lightning out of my fingertips, I'm taking on that bear,
Okay, Storypunks, I'm going to break it off here just because, again, it helps me to produce these shows to be able to break it into 2 parts when we have a longer discussion like this. So for anyone who has not left a review yet, please know that I can still send a few of the coloring books out. So you've already heard about those in previous episodes. I won't belabor it, but I hope if you have just heard about it in this episode, you'll go check out the show notes or go check out storypunks.world. You'll find more information about how you can leave a review, send me a picture of it, and hopefully get one of these steampunk coloring books by artist Joe Benitez. And I'm really excited to share these because I know it takes a little bit of time, not too much time, but it takes a little bit of time to leave a review. And other than that, if you need to break away now and come back to the next part of this conversation, good luck with everything you're working on. And if not, I will be back with you in just a few minutes.